You say you want peace, but you flinch every time the world goes quiet. You reach for your phone when the silence stretches too long. You open another tab, scroll another feed, play another voice, anything but your own. Because deep down, you're not afraid of silence. You're afraid of what it will show you. There's a reason you can't sit still. A reason your chest tightens when things slow down. Because in the quiet, there's no one else to blame. No noise to distract you. Just you, raw, unfiltered, unfinished. You've built a life of motion, always reaching, always fixing, always running. And yet, beneath all of it, something in you aches. Not for more answers, but for less noise. You want to feel calm, but you treat stillness like a threat. You say you want peace, but you run from the only place it's ever been found. Maybe it's not peace that's been missing. Maybe it's your ability to stay, because peace is not something you find in the world. It's something that finds you when you stop trying to be anything else. And if the silence you've been avoiding isn't empty but sacred, and if the stillness that haunts you is actually your soul trying to speak, what if everything you've been chasing is hiding right here, in the quiet you keep turning away from? Maybe it's time to listen, not with your ears, but with your whole being, because the peace you seek has been whispering to you all along. It just sounds a lot like silence. You've spent years performing, wearing smiles that don't belong to you, answering "I'm fine" like it's a rehearsed line in a play you never auditioned for. You became the version of yourself the world applauded, the one who always knows what to say, the one who keeps busy, who achieves, who moves forward, even when it hurts. But behind all that movement, there's a quiet fatigue, a soul tired of pretending. No one taught you how to be with silence, only how to fill it. With words, with tasks, with relationships, with goals. You learned to be valuable, not vulnerable. You learned to be strong, not still. And so you've lived inside a performance. Not because you're fake, but because you were scared that who you are might not be enough. You became fluent in noise. You speak ambition, obligation, perfection. You wear your to-do list like armor. But silence? Silence speaks a different language. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't ask who you impressed today. It doesn't care what you produce. It asks, who are you without it all? That question terrifies the part of you still trying to earn love, still trying to matter, still trying to survive in a world that rarely rewards presence. So you fill the space with everything, with anything, because stillness, to the part of you that was hurt, feels like abandonment. It reminds you of moments when no one came, when you cried and the room stayed quiet, when love was loud in promises, but silent in presence. And so, silence became the enemy, not because it harmed you, but because it revealed the harm that was already there. You built walls out of noise. You decorated them with success, with charm, with approval. But at night, when everything slows, you hear the truth knocking. You say you can't hear your intuition, but that's because it whispers, and your life is too loud to let it speak. You say you don't know who you are, but you've never stayed long enough with yourself to find out. This isn't judgment, it's recognition. Because beneath the masks, beneath the roles, beneath the endless noise, there is a you that is aching to be known. A you that isn't performing, that isn't fixing, that isn't rushing. A self that doesn't need to be validated, to be real. This part of you knows silence. It isn't afraid of it. It grew from it. And every time you run from stillness, you abandon that self again. The one who never needed to be anyone else. So maybe it's not about becoming someone new. Maybe it's about returning to someone ancient within you. Someone who remembers how to sit, how to breathe, how to be. Because silence is not empty. It is full of truths. It holds the mirror to the mask and asks gently, is this really you? You've lived long enough behind the curtain. Maybe it's time to step out. Not for applause, not for recognition, but for reunion. Because who you are beneath the performance, beneath the noise, is already whole. And silence is just the space where you finally remember. What does your silence hold? Write the words you've never dared to say out loud. as if someone will finally hear them. Silence wasn't always frightening. Once it was the background of your earliest moments, before language, before logic, before the world taught you what to fear. There was only breath, heartbeat, sensation. But then came the moments that cracked you, moments that carved meanings into stillness, the quiet after being left, the silence when someone raised their voice, then walked away, the cold, echoing stillness after hearing, "I'm disappointed in you." Silence stopped being neutral. It became a signal, a warning. Something inside you learned to brace every time it arrived. Because silence, for many, never just meant peace. It meant absence. It meant rejection. It meant being unseen in the moments you needed most to be held. So you adapted. You grew thorns around your stillness. You filled every empty space with motion, every quiet pause with performance. You became a master of noise, a professional in the art of looking okay. But the pain never disappeared. It just moved underground. It learned to whisper instead of scream. It curled up in your chest, took root in your thoughts, shaped the way you love, the way you fear, the way you breathe. This is the wound silence gave you, but it's also where it can heal you. You see, the pain that shaped you in secret is sacred. It's not here to shame you. It's here to open you. In Buddhism, suffering isn't failure. It's awakening in disguise. Each moment of emotional silence, every time you were ignored, every time you felt invisible, became a teacher. But no one told you to listen. They just told you to move on. So you did. You moved on. But something stayed behind. Something small. Something honest. Maybe it was the version of you that cried quietly in bed at night. The one who stared at the ceiling, asking questions no one ever answered. The one who looked in the mirror and couldn't understand why it still hurt. That version never left. It's waiting in your silence, not to haunt you, but to be held, finally. This is what stillness does. It brings you back to the moments you abandoned yourself, not to relive them, but to release them, to finally feel what you buried, to forgive what you couldn't fix, to meet your pain, not as an enemy, but as the part of you that stayed honest when everything else got too loud. This is where the real healing begins. Not in answers, not in affirmations, but in a quiet recognition. I see you. I never should have left you behind. Grief lives in silence, but so does grace. The same space that held your sorrow holds your return. You don't have to speak the perfect words. You don't have to understand it all. You just have to stop running and stay. Stay long enough for the pain to soften. Stay long enough for the silence to shift, because beneath the ache, there is a truth. You were never broken. You were breaking open. You were never meant to numb it all. You were meant to feel deeply, to hold what others dropped, to breathe through the parts that felt unbearable, and still keep living. That's the miracle of silence. It doesn't yell. It doesn't chase. It just waits. Until you're ready to come home. Letting go isn't about losing. It's about loosening the grip you didn't realize you were clenching. All your life, you've been taught to hold on, to goals, to identities, to relationships, to narratives that no longer reflect who you are. But silence teaches a different way. It asks you to surrender, not out of weakness, but out of trust. The kind of trust that says, I don't need to control everything to be okay. You've carried so much. Expectations like weights, guilt like second skin, the pressure to be seen, to be chosen, to be enough. And still, it never felt like peace. Because peace doesn't arrive through more effort. It emerges through release. You are not here to be a masterpiece. You are here to be real. To breathe without earning it. To exist without proving it. Imagine this. You're floating. Not falling. Not climbing. Just floating. The water holds you. The sky watches you. And for the first time in years, you're not trying to be anything. That's what letting go feels like. It's not resignation. It's recognition that your value isn't tied to what you hold, but to who you are when your hands are finally empty. You've confused control with safety, but control is exhausting. It demands your constant presence, not your true presence, but your guarded one. And silence? Silence is where your real presence returns. It doesn't ask for perfection. It simply asks, can you be here now without fixing anything? That question feels impossible when you've lived a life of proving, but it's also the doorway to freedom. Letting go means making space for your breath to deepen, for your thoughts to slow, for your soul to speak. And when you listen, really listen, you start to hear the difference between the noise of your conditioning and the voice of your truth. Your conditioning screams, do more, be more, achieve. Your truth whispers, you already are. You don't need more to become whole. You need less. Less judgment, less self-editing, less chasing. Because the more you try to fit into the noise, the more you shrink your own voice. And paradoxically, the less you try to be accepted, the more you become yourself. Not the curated version, not the filtered one, but the real, untamed, soft-centered you. Letting go isn't a loss, it's a return to your breath, to your body, to the sacred pause between all the doing. It's not about becoming silent. It's about becoming spacious, like a field with no fences, like a sky without borders. You don't have to escape your life. You just have to stop clinging to the version of it that's built on fear. Letting go means unlearning the lie that you're only lovable when you perform. It means trusting that your stillness holds beauty too, that your quiet presence is a gift, not a gap. This is the invitation of silence, to sit down, to put everything down, and to realize you're still here, still breathing, still worthy, still whole. Not because you did everything right, but because you stopped trying to prove that you had to. Freedom isn't found in chasing more. It's found in releasing what you no longer need to carry. And peace? Peace isn't out there. It's inside, quiet, patient, unwavering, waiting, always waiting, for the moment you finally stop and listen. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full, not of noise, but of presence, of something ancient and vast, like the space between stars, like the breath of the universe. This silence doesn't punish. It doesn't ask you to change. It simply waits for you to arrive. No more masks, no more stories, just the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are in this moment. You've been told to fight, to fix, to rise above. But what if healing isn't about rising? What if it's about sinking? Sinking into the truth you've avoided, the sadness you kept busy to avoid, the softness you buried beneath armor. Suffering taught you to harden, to tense, to resist, to stay alert. But silence, true silence, teaches the opposite. It invites you to soften, to lay down the sword, to stop running, to sit with your own humanity without flinching. There is no finish line here, no moment where everything is perfect. There is only now, and now, and now again. Each breath a chance to return to yourself, to the part of you that was never broken, only buried beneath the noise. Maybe that's what the silence has been trying to tell you. You were never supposed to fight your way to peace. You were supposed to remember it, to remember that peace isn't a destination, it's a permission to exist as you are. There's a healing that happens when you stop speaking. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally realize you don't need to explain. There's a wisdom in stillness, a kind of knowing that doesn't come from thinking. It comes from being. You can't force your way into peace. You can only fall into it. Like exhaling after holding your breath for years. Maybe you thought you had to become someone else to be loved. But silence has no demands. It doesn't care what you've done or failed to do. It just holds you, exactly as you are. That's the healing. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of compassion. Not a life without struggle, but a self that no longer abandons itself in the struggle. This is your refuge. Not a place, but a presence. A space inside you that can't be broken, can't be taken, can't be lost, because it was never outside of you. It was always here, beneath the layers, beneath the fear, beneath the pretending, waiting. Silence isn't the end. It's the beginning of listening, of trusting, of coming home. You don't need to fix your life before you rest. You don't need to earn this moment, you just need to stop and be here, as you are, without reaching, without performing, just breathing, just being. And maybe for the first time, that's enough. So if you're tired, stay. If you're breaking, stay. If you don't know how to begin again, stay. Not to find peace, but to let it find you. Because the silence you feared has been trying to hold you all along. And maybe, just maybe, this is the moment you finally let it.